to VF Maloo. I've had this car for 18 months and I love it. A lot of things I love about it. I'm going to give you the pros and cons from my perspective, things I love about it, things I don't like about it. And I think after 18 months I've got a pretty good grasp of what the car's like, how the car's been long term, both from a driver's standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and from a enjoyability, reliability. This is by no means a pro car review. I am an owner. Try and make this as unbiased as possible, but at the end of the day, this is my car. I do love this car. That's why I bought this car. The car itself, so it is VF Series 1 HSV Maloo, the R8. These normally come 340 kilowatts. This is the non-supercharged LSA version, so it's not LSA, they're the Series 2s. So this comes with 340 kilowatts from the factory standard. This has the Walkinshaw upgrade, just the low end upgrade, which is the air intake is moved to behind the radiator, tuned for that air take and extractors. It brings up to 375 kilowatts. But if you can't fry the tyres with 375 kilowatts, then you probably shouldn't be driving this car. Just my opinion. 6.2 litre. Look, it's solid as houses. It's the LS3 engines. What are they up to? I think they're up to LS9 in the Corvettes now, but this LS3 6.2 litre, it's safe as houses. They're a good engine. The gearbox, 6-speed manual. The gearbox is good. The clutch, I prefer a slightly heavier clutch, but this isn't too bad. The only thing I don't like about the gearbox is there's nothing wrong with the gearing or the ratio. I just don't like where reverse is. I'm used to reverse being over next to first. The gearbox itself is wonderful. They're pretty bulletproof. They're pretty hard to break. Classic HSV doing a good job. The one thing I thought that I'd never really rely on, the heads-up displays. It's unreal. Like, the only time I look at my cluster these days, Defender 110, love it. The only time I look at my displays now is usually the little TFT screen that's in between your odometer and your speedometer. At the moment I've got it set to tyre pressure. More about why I've got it set to tyre pressure. But compared to the VF Commodore, this setup with this driver interface is just, it smashes the standard VF Commodore. There's no tyre pressure monitoring on as far as I know. My old girl has a VF Series 2 Storm, which is the V6, and the TFT screen is completely different. It's a lot more budget. There's half the features. But yeah, tyre pressure, fuel monitoring system, trip computers, the whole shebang. Now I leave it on the tyre pressure because I think I've just been really unlucky lately with the tyres. I recently, where are we now? We're at 41,000 Ks, just over 41,500 Ks. At 40,000 Ks I put 4 brand new tyres on. So 1,500 Ks ago, and in the last 3 weeks I've had 3 punctures. Maybe I'm just super unlucky. I haven't been frying the tyres or anything like that, they've just literally been punctures. For a brand new tyre, that just annoys the crap out of you, especially when you're buying these Continental contact sport 5s, which are $400 a pop. Maybe I'm just really unlucky. Maybe I've got a bad batch of tyres. Who knows? But we're just going to deal with it. So that's why I leave the tyre pressure monitoring on all the time. So I've got a good idea of what's going on. All right, a couple of things that I dislike about the car: the A-pillars. They are huge. Now I know A-pillars these days have got these got airbags in them, SRS airbags. but it is huge. And for my driving position, because I'm 195, so I'm just under 6'5", so I'm all leg. I have to sit quite far back, and because my torso is short, to get my eyes middle with the middle of the windscreen. For dyslexic people playing at home, I have to sit up a little bit, so my eyes are in the middle of the windscreen. Now, I literally, when I'm, you'll see as we go through the national park, going around corners and anywhere where there's pedestrians or I'm looking for the inside gutter, I literally have to come this way and this way to check. That is how wide this A-pillar is. It is a pain in the ass. It's one thing I really don't like in the car. The second thing I didn't like when I first got the car, I've had it changed since, was the reverse camera on the driver interface. It was just a camera, no grid lines, and in a car that has, we'll look at number 3 of the third thing I really don't like, but I knew going into it, was the visibility. Visibility out the front is fine. Forget checking blind spots. Thank God this car has blind spot monitoring, otherwise it'd be sort of like guess and hope. Without the grid lines on the reverse camera, all you get is you can just see the middle of the rear bumper. You have no idea where the lateral aspects of the car are, which I had fixed when I took it in for a service, which we'll touch on a little bit later when we talk about my experience with servicing and with the car as a whole. So the rear visibility was horrible. You have no idea where the edges of the car are, so when you're reversing, it's sort of, I literally had to have someone stand when I first got the car on either side, so I knew whereabouts on the screen the edges of the car were. So which brings me back to the third, visibility. Without blind spot monitoring, the visibility is pretty ordinary. The ride comfort's pretty good. For it's set up for sport, it is set up as a track variant, so it is quite stiff. I generally leave it in sport mode, so down here you have touring, which sort of puts the baffles on to quieten the car down while on the freeways. Good for not waking the neighbours up when you leave at 4 o'clock in the morning to go do photography. You see I'm having to put my head around just to see what's coming up on the inside, if anything's actually coming up on the inside. In the middle is sport, which gives you competition steering and I'll tell you, steering and bimodal exhaust. Speaking of steering, I love the steering in this. A lot of people don't like the electronically assisted steering. The good thing about the electronic assisted steering, I'll try to say that 3 times fast, is there's no play in the steering wheel, which is always good. I found, especially in the older style Commodores like the WH Statesmans, there was so much play in the steering wheel. People say the electronic steering doesn't give you as much feedback off the road. It doesn't bother me. I like it. It makes it light where it's supposed to be and a little bit heavier where it's not. It feels like it's dampened quite well. Alright, so let's move on to a few things that I absolutely love about this car. The engine, one thing, the sound this car makes. A lot of people say that it sounds quite quiet, but this one doesn't. I've done nothing to it except for the Walkinshaw extractors. But yeah, a lot of car reviews say that the VF Commodores almost had their sort of their growl taken away from them. That's absolute garbage. This thing, when you open it up, maybe they need to, maybe they didn't realise how to turn the touring mode off, left it in touring, and it's quiet up until you really open it up and get the bimodals out of the way. If you are like me and plan on not carrying a lot of kit in the rear, I haven't done this, but I can see why a lot of people do. Get the rear lowered a little bit further than standard, just the rear. because what it will do is the front of this car sits quite low because it's designed to have up to about 500 kilos in the rear of the car, which will bring the back down. And when you bring the back down, it actually lifts the front of the car up a little bit. When you bring the front of the car up a little bit, you won't have any problems with driveways or speed ups, which I do. They say this doesn't sound, it sounds fantastic. I don't care what they say. Bit of a squirt up. It does feel light in the rear. Definitely feels light in the rear. It doesn't move around, but you can definitely feel that the front really sort of tucks in, and the back's the back just wants to kick out. But it is a U. It's pretty standard for a U. Other things I love, I guess the best thing about having a U, especially one that's got the creature comforts that this does of leather seats, is in summer the cubic capacity in here is so small that the car cools down very quickly. Same as in winter, warms up very quickly. I think that's a real underappreciated thing with these small cabins. It's how quickly you can cool them down and heat them up, which I think is quite important, especially for someone who does a lot of early morning stuff and coming home late at night. During winter, the last thing you want is to be sitting in a cold car. It's a big V8, so fuel economy is horrible. It is. We're averaging 16.8 at the moment, as you can see. So we're giving a little bit through here. I'm pretty conservative with it, Monday to Friday, even on the weekends. I give it a squirt every now and again, but nothing stupid. I've had it down to around 12 and a half, and I was able to keep it there for about a month. And then I got bored. It was quite hard work keeping it at 12 and a half litres per 100 Ks. I had the user interface that you can see now, the rev thing set to economy, and literally changing with the computer to keep it in. Alright, so what's it been like to own for 18 months? This has probably been one of the best cars I've owned. At the end of the day, I don't generally have the need to have more than one person in the car, and I frequently go away on weekends for photography and other outdoor activities. So loading up the back, tan sleeping bag, and all my camera kit and all that sort of stuff, it works perfect for me. Even though I am limited to where you can take this car, my experience with the car in terms of reliability, getting it serviced, like I said, I've only really had the tyre issues. I did have someone back into the car, bastards, and never left a note. Now, why was that such a problem? Well, when I got back to the car wouldn't start. Obviously, the alarm had been going on during the evening that it happened, and I didn't realise that when the alarm has gone off in these VF HSVs, before you press start, you get in, it actually tells you to turn the steering wheel. Now, I'm not sure if that has something to do with the flat, or if it's a safety mechanism for, or something to do with like post-crash, even though it wasn't really a crash, it was just someone ran into the car. But yeah, you have to get in, you have to road, and then press the start. I didn't know that. I was stranded for about an hour, and then I saw that, and it just happened to work. The driver interface, when you plug your phone into the auxiliary, or the USB, which this car only has one USB and one 12-volt outlet, which I guess is plenty for 2 seats, but as a camera operator, if I were to keep this car, and what you're hearing there was the driver alert for warning collision. which, forgive the segue, I'll jump straight onto that collision alert now. It does get confused when it gets a glare and it gets rebound off other surfaces, so quite often when you're driving into the sun, it'll just continue to go off every now and again. Yeah, so when you plug your phone into the USB, immediately when you start the car or just after you've started the car, sometimes the whole driver interface goes blank. Nothing happens and it won't come on. That includes when you need your rear view camera, your rear vision camera. Big problem. The only way that I've been able to solve it is I have to unplug the phone, turn the car off, get out of the car, lock the car, walk away, let the ECU turn completely off, and then come back 5 minutes later, which is a pain in the butt. It really is. And it's happened to me probably about half a dozen times in the 18 months, which doesn't sound like a lot, but twice, 2 of those times, when you're in a hurry, it's annoying. With that being said, I haven't had it. Now, when you know about it, you just don't do it. You get in, you start the car, you drive for a little bit. When you get to the first set of traffic lights, then you plug your phone in or whatever. Servicing experience. Has anyone ever had a good servicing experience with a car company? I don't think so. The be all and end all is twice. I've had this car serviced twice since I bought it. Alright, so I've had the car since I think it was 18 or 19,000 Ks. I got it serviced the day I bought it home from the dealership, because I bought it up at Gosford, because they only ever do a safety check on the car. And the day after I bought it, I took it and had it serviced. Half the stuff that was supposed to be done on a general service had not been done. How did we know? Well, before, of course, I took it to get it serviced, I had a couple of my mates who are mechanics mark all the nuts and bolts that are supposed to be undone in order to drain fluids. Of course, 2 of the 3 had not been undone at all, so they hadn't drained the fluids, which meant they hadn't replaced the fluids. Annoying? Yeah. So I took it back, got my cap price servicing refund, plus a free service on my next one. Good result, but still, it's not really the point, is it? You pay for something to get done, you expect it to get done. The second time I went in, I had a slow puncture that needed fixing, and it was when I got the rear camera that did the grid lines, so you know where the aspect portions of the car are. The guy calls me after I sat with him for about 5 minutes saying, look, this is what I need done, write it down please, I want it all done. He rings me 3 hours later and says, the car's ready to be picked up, mate, the servicing's been done, the new software on the ECUs on the driver interface has been done, so you got your rear grid lines and the puncture's been fixed. I get there, I pick the car up, the first thing I do is I put the car in reverse to see if the grid lines, no grid lines. The guy comes out and goes, oh, always someone else's fault, right? Always someone else. So I said, oh, well, obviously the software, the firmware update hasn't taken. You're going to need the car for another 2 hours, because that's how long it takes. Sitting around for 2.5 hours. Works. I drive away. Half an hour later, I realise that I'm still losing tyre pressure out of the same tyre that I was supposed to fix. Went back. Tyre puncture had not been patched or plugged or anything at all. Funny enough, I hadn't got a refund because that was the service that was given to me for free 9 months later. So technically I've had the car serviced 3 times, paid for it once. Like I said, not the point. I have no trouble paying for something as long as what I'm paying for actually gets done. And I think this is a big problem across most of the dealerships. I don't think it's a dealership issue, I think it's a worker issue. People just want to get paid for nothing, for doing nothing. But that's been my experience with Holden servicing. I'm not going to say which dealership it is. I live in the Shire, so take a guess. But yeah, that's been my user experience with Holden. So my suggestion, if you have, even though I have cap price servicing till 2021, I get my servicing done every 5,000 Ks by my mechanic that I know and trust, and then I get the one done every 9 months by Holden Service. Would I buy this car again? Absolutely, in a heartbeat. Would I buy this version or the LSA version? I'd stick with this version. Personally, I don't think the value in the LSA versions for a supercharged look, you can take this to over 400 kilowatts, 425 kilowatts before putting a supercharger on, and you'll get, in my opinion, a better car. I do prefer the noise, the naturally aspirated V8s provide over the supercharged versions, but that's just me. But then again, I could easily put the Walkinshaw 547 kilowatt pack on this, which has a supercharger. So who's this car suited to? HSV enthusiast, of course. They're not producing the Maloos or any HSVs anymore, I believe. I believe the GTSR is the last HSV to be made. These aren't exactly the top end tradesman ute that they used to be. People are more going towards those more utilitarian, take anywhere sort of vehicles, like your BT50s and your Wild Tracks. I think long gone are the days that you see SS utes and Maloo utes at building sites. So probably more for people who just want to carry and then carry a fair bit of kit around. Low profile kit. You're not going to be fitting any washing machines or anything in the back unless you leave the boot open or don't have a lid on it at all. Flat packs and all that will be fine, of course. Does hold up to 500 kilos. I think it's actually 485 to be exact. The fuel economy is really not that bad. If you can easily average around about 14 litres per 100 Ks, easily. But if fuel economy is your thing, then you're not going to be buying a V8, are you? The best thing about the autos is you can remote start the car. You can't do that with the manuals, of course. If you're tall like me, I'm smidgen under 6'5", and I'm all leg. Seating position took ages to find the right one for me, because I'm all leg, short torso, so I have to sit up a little bit to have my eyes in the middle of the windshield, and the chair far enough to have good leg orientation, but it's not really ideal. It's alright for commuting and driving normally, but if you put this on a track, you really want to be down a little bit more because you just get better clutch feel. The road was closed there and a bit further up here, so that was totally legal. If there's anything that I've missed, that you'd like to know about, just leave a comment below. I hope this has helped in one way, shape or form. I'm the sort of person who researches the absolute crap out of something before I buy it, especially when it's like a substantial purchase. Hope this has been as unbiased as possible. At the end of the day, I do love this car, and I think I've been pretty fair in terms of what I think is not so great about the car. Look, I'm not an engineer. I don't know how I would change certain things about it. But to me, look, the handling, I love the steering. It drives well. You can use it day to day. If you give it a squirt, it'll do exactly what you want it to do. It can haul shit. It's been the best car that I've owned. Are there better options out there? Of course. Well, it's going to be highly individual. It's going to be based on what you're going to use it. If you're like me and usually the only person in the car, do you need a 4-seater? No. Great brakes. Unreal fucking brakes. But they're massive calipers. The cost of the brakes alone, with discs, change both front and rear, you're looking at around about $2,100 Australian. With tyres being on average around about $400 each, it's quite a. There are more financially viable options out there. It's not bad by any means. Well, it kind of is. Hell, my cap price servicing is $235 if it gets done. I'm looking at you, Sutherland Holt. So should you buy this car? Well, maybe not this one, but one like it. Absolutely. It's reliable. Besides the tyres, it's never left me stranded anywhere, which it shouldn't. They're a solid car. Will you have a ball in this car? Fucking oath you will. Absolutely. This car can be a lot of fun. Just understand, if you're planning on having a lot of fun in this type of car, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Replacement tyres, replacement brakes. It's not the best car to have a lot of fun in because it ends up being expensive. But if you can afford it, then by all means. I really do like the steering in this car. I think it's incredible. I like the way it sort of sits in corners. You get a little bit of body roll, but once again, the body roll, it's not in the front, it's in the back of the car. It's like the back just wants to step out a little bit on hard corners. The front really sort of holds it quite well, but it's just because there's no weight in the back. If you have the opportunity to buy this car, maybe not this one, but one like it, right? You won't. I think if you've been watching this review and you've gone into the review without your decision already made, you're not going to be disappointed. In this car, you get in it, it gives you that essence of speed, power, throw it into a corner and you'll come out the other side. This car does look amazing. I'm biased, I love the way this car looks. I think this is one of the few cars, in my opinion, on the road that looks good from every single angle. Every single angle. This car does not have a bad position to look at it from. Oh, we're coming out of the National Park at Waterfall. Again, I hope you got a lot out of this. I hope I answered questions that you might have, questions that you were pondering over, and car was going to be a purchase that was going to be right for you. Maybe you were just sitting on the fence, and were like me, just trying to find information out on the car from someone who had actually spent a fair bit of time in the car. I've done 24,000 Ks in this car. Once again, my opinions are my own. But I think they are shared by many. And we might finish off with how this car performs in a straight line. We're going to come back onto the highway here, so we'll give it a bit of a squirt, a proper squirt. We'll put everything in performance mode. So we've got traction control as comp, stability control as comp, steering as comp, exhaust as comp. Just gonna So I hope you enjoyed this review again. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Maybe I'll answer them. I'll probably answer them. Until possibly next time.